Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for episode 3 of our Inclusive Classroom series. We have a treat for you today. One of our favorite guests is with us today, Araceli Garcia. Do you want to tell us what you're covering for us today?
Yeah, hello everyone. So today another great topic that I love to talk about, and that is literacy and literacy across the curriculum. So we'll talk about some strategies that we can use.
Perfect. So again, my name is Teresa Castro.
I'm Ricardo Vecinos.
And we are joined with the beautiful Araceli Garcia, who is going to go over this great topic. So we can't wait. Go ahead and get into it.
All right. Well, hello everyone. So just a little background. So I am a high school English teacher. I've been teaching for a good while. In fact, almost 25 years this year. I actually taught first grade, fourth grade, a little bit of middle school, and I'm also an instructional coach. So I actually do some PD out of UCLA Center X on something called design-based learning that I'll be kind of mentioning and referring to at the very end, giving you some more information. But I'm excited to present this topic. Go ahead. All right, so this is my objective for this session. So the objective is to just talk about literacy, but what literacy looks like in today's world, right? We might know the definition, but we want to reflect on what does it mean for our young people today. I also want to talk about these high-stake exams that our students are still taking. Whether, even when we were doing distance learning, our students were taking the LPAC or the AP exams and so forth. So what do these exams look like, and how is literacy important? And finally, we're going to talk about what can we do to lower that affective filter in our classrooms so that students can feel that their voice is important, and so we can engage them. And I'm going to give you lots of different strategies that you can use to create that inclusive learning environment. All right, so I always like to ask, when you look across your classroom, you're seeing these faces here and these kids, right? They're coming in with all types of things. We have to ask, well, where is the literacy level at, right? Where are they at with the reading, writing, speaking, listening skills? So, just from looking at your classroom, you can kind of try to guess, you can look at some data, right? But this is what we really find. Go ahead. What you find is that our students are very diverse. Again, you have kids who are dealing with all types of things, processing delays, anxiety, even more so now. I don't know if all of you are seeing it or feeling it out there, but a lot of times television shows high school classes as being loud and rambunctious and right. Actually, it's quite the opposite right now. At least that's what I'm noticing. It's really difficult to get kids out of that anxiety. They've gotten so used to just hiding behind that computer screen, and getting them to interact with the teacher, with each other, it has been a challenge. So as you can see here, all of our students need strong literacy skills. We need to bring that out and make them feel that their voice is important today. So this is basically, again, whether they're diagnosed or not, whether they have an IEP or not, all our kids can benefit from literacy skills. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's sad because we used to make fun of that, like, you're on mute, right? But they came back and they're still on mute, right? Because they got so used to that. And how do we change that? How do we bring them back to what they...
Yes, it really is. There's classes where I used to be so used to the chatter, and they're not. They're just kind of sitting there, almost eerie. Like, what happened here, right? All right. So we've seen this. We know about this. We know that there's a difference between equity and equality, and that we shouldn't be just giving the same assignment to all of our students and expecting the same outcome, because they're coming in with so many different needs. And so really the word of the day is personalizing some of that instruction, personalizing it. Knowing, right, the student-centered classroom. It doesn't mean the student takes over the class, right, and you go have coffee in the back. It means that you are aware of who your students are and what they need. And so we're going to talk about how to make this manageable, right, because we also want to make sure we stay sane and we can manage the workload. So go ahead. So, just to emphasize, being fair doesn't mean I'm going to give everyone the same thing. Right? This kid over here might need to cut down on the assignment. This kid over here, they might need to speak it out. This kid over here, they can write and they want to write, right? And I'm going to give a variety of options for my students to get to those literacy skills. Go ahead. All right. So I'd like to begin first with telling a little story. So a little narrative of a class that I was able to teach a couple years ago. And so just a little background. The school that I was teaching at that time implemented a schedule called the 4x4 schedule. I don't know if you all remember when workmen went to 4x4. And basically what it means is that kids were sitting in 90-minute classes, but they were only taking 4 classes actually, a semester. And they were doing all of the semester's work in a very condensed fashion. For some students, was great, kind of like a college class, right? But for other students, this was not ideal. And so they failed their English course. And we all know English is a graduation requirement, right? And so I asked my principal, what if I took these kids to second semesters? These kids came from other teachers. And I said, I love a challenge. give me these kids. And I want to try what I use in my classroom, which is some design-based learning. And so this is my breakdown here. As you can see, students with some special needs. We had English learners, all types. And the biggest issue was they were just unmotivated, just unengaged, which might be similar to what we're encountering right now. A lot of kids just unmotivated. Go ahead. So I had kids who, again, mind you, I teach high school. And if you take a look at this is where my students were at. Not all of them, of course, but some of our tough kids, right? So I love this kid, right, Jesus? He struggled with writing. He didn't like to write. As you can see here, he was an 11th grader. And this is a type of writing I was getting from him, if anything, right? And so, but love this kid. He was vibrant. Man, could he talk? And can he rap? This kid would come up with songs on the spot. It's like, whoa, talent. And I wanted to bring that out. Go ahead. So, I did my thing, all kinds of strategies, got him to feel comfortable in my class. I still remember that one time he just started rapping and I said, Jesus. He's like, right away he apologized. Oh, I'm sorry, miss. I'm sorry. I'm like, did you just come up with that right now? It's like, oh, yeah, right. This kid was literate. This kid had literacy skills. We as a school, though, had kind of dropped the ball in not knowing how to tap into that. And so, with some writing frames and some models, this is what he was able to produce. So later on, he started feeling more comfortable. And if you read that first little paragraph, it's kind of interesting because what I found out by asking, getting to know him, is that he had been diagnosed with MS. And he had missed about a year of school when he was younger and never quite recovered and just went on a downward spiral in school. And so it was hard for him to focus in school. So again, I needed to know these stories. So I knew where he was at. Go ahead. Here's another student I had. So you'll notice my teacher markings here is that I use codes. And, I don't talk about it too much here, but I have a sheet where my students can refer to. So instead of me spending hours writing a comment, you missed a comma here or, subject-verb agreement issue, they would just refer to the code. And this kind of guided them along the way, right? And again, no red, right? So I was very aware of, what it feels like to get that paper back. Go ahead. And again, here's her essay now. You see an intro, you see a hook that we use some basic hook strategies, right? And so giving them, again, the practice. We did this over and over, a lot of different practice for the students, repetition on high interest topics. And I'll mention that later too, but man, we talked about hot Cheetos, right? And we talked about the Takis and we talked about, right? And we got a whole debate going. And so that's what I would tap into. Go ahead. One of the things I like to do is I tell students, I hold on to students' essays and they're like, take off the name. But I like to go around and show them this essay. Now, I actually have the essay here in my hands. And I know you probably can't see it too well. But if you were in my classroom, you'd actually see this essay. And you can show it there. Look at that.
So cool.
And it is all just right. It was based on the Scarlet Letter. And I call this the Scarlet Paper because of And so, if you were in the class, you get a better look at this paper, and it's I hate to say it, but it's kind of falling apart. It's a little yellowish, right? And the students soon find out, and they say things like, "Whoa, miss, that's old, right? Was that typed?" And I tell them, "Yeah, it was typed." And, I tell them, imagine getting this paper back. Your friends are sitting next to you and they're like, what'd you get? What'd you get? And you see this, right? Go ahead and go to the, right? Oh, actually, stay here. Look at that last paragraph. That's the conclusion there, right? It's completely X'd out, right? And the teacher played tic-tac-toe with the eyes there, right? So, as they go around and they talk about this essay, like, wow, this kid probably failed, right? Go ahead and go to the next slide. I tell them, well, I hate to tell you, but that essay is mine. And so there's my name right there. You can see it, right? Ms. Garcia, Mr. Smith.
So powerful.
And he said, I'm going to give you a D for high school, but if you were in college, I'd give you the grade at the bottom. So he gave us 2 grades, a high school grade and a college grade. Yeah. Woo! Woo! Right? Now, mind you, I'm the oldest, and I had my eyes on going to college. And I had been getting A's most of my high school career. Here I was in an honors class, and I thought I knew it all. And then I encountered this teacher, and man, he was brutal. And like I said, I had to make a decision. Do I stay in this honors class, or do I drop the class, get a regular class, get an A in it? But because I am the way I am, and I like a challenge, I stuck it out. And so again, I'm a second language learner. So I didn't have dictionaries at home. I didn't have books at home. We were very humble. Nobody spoke English in my home. Nobody had gone to college. I didn't have those resources. So I had to stay, and I stayed late at school. I would get help from my friends. And if you go to the next slide, from my teacher too. So as much as I hated Mr. Smith at that time, he didn't let us drop. He wouldn't let us drop. And so, he would give us tutoring. We would come in. I actually ended up becoming president of a club we had, a literary club. We ended up going to operas and plays, and he gave us this rich content. So no longer was it just writing an essay. Now I became hungry to learn some more because I had a supportive teacher, supportive class environment. My friends and I built this team to stick through it. Go ahead. And so I wish I could tell you I ended up getting an A. That would have been a great story. But I ended up getting a B/C, right? And I mentioned this because I think it's important to share our stories with our students. So I think that's going to be, tip number 1. Be vulnerable. Show them your mistakes, right? It's okay. Show them that it's not about being perfect. There is no perfect in writing, especially in literacy, right? That we are going to make these mistakes, but it's what we do with it. And so again, that nurturing environment, and he was tough and he had high expectations for us. We read so much. Of course, the funny thing is, years later, I ended up being a teacher trainer, and guess who was in the audience? Yep, Mr. Smith was sitting in the audience as my student. So I tell you, I always tell the students, best revenge.
Did you have the paper with you? That would have been great.
I don't think I did.
You should always carry it with you at all times.
I do. I
just
have
in
my
case.
little badge. Yeah, and I ended up becoming an English major. From being a second language learner, a kid who struggled, didn't have a lot of resources at home. The passion for learning was just instilled in me because this teacher, number 1, high expectations, but number 2, created an atmosphere. And Mr. Henninger too, who's my senior English teacher. And we kind of followed this little cohort and continue to do things. And that's, again, things that I want you to think about when creating your classroom environment, right? Go ahead. And so we talk about lowering that affective filter, right? What can I say? We had issues before the pandemic. I mean, kids were coming in with so much fear, so many things, especially the school, where I work out there. It's a working class community. I actually graduated from my high school, right? And so I walked those streets. I know the struggles. I was just sharing with the students today, that life seemed so perfect when I was young. But sadly, we encountered tragedies. My dad passed away. Pretty soon I had to translate all the documents. My teachers didn't know this, right? They didn't ask what was going on. And I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me, but I needed some help. I needed a space to study. I couldn't go study at home. because there were 12 people living in my home. We rented out rooms. And this is a story of many students today.
Right. Mm.
I mean, we have kids who, I mean, they're saying, I don't know if you see it, Ricardo and Teresa, they like sit there and stare at the paper or the computer, and they're not really working. And some teachers, we might get a little bit frustrated, like, come on, what's going on, right? We don't know what's happening, what's going on. And so I'm going to try different methods, always with love, always with care. Even if the kid comes in late every single day, I'm going to be like that was an instructor at the gym. I'm glad you're here. Well, let me get you going, right? And hopefully I instill in them that this is a safe place. I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to use a red pen all over your writing, the first essay that you write, right? Because I haven't done my job. I got to teach you, right? And so I'm going to coach my students into wanting to produce, not try to push them away. And I think that's more important today than ever before. Kids are coming with so much anxiety, right? And they feel if that anxiety is high, nothing's going in, right? Nothing's going to go in. Go ahead. All right, so back to this case study. And I identified myself with students like this who struggled with writing and struggled with reading and vocabulary. And so the students that I received from other teachers, as you can see here, they had taken district assessments. They were juniors. They were going to take the CASP, the SBAC. And so you'll see here on their first one, and if you kind of go through those slides there, you'll just see a lot of red. So this was a list of my students. Keep going. Yep, a lot of red, few green there. And so if you stop here, you'll see what district assessment number 1, we're at, was it 87% not met. And district assessment number 2, 60% not met, right? And again, these are my juniors. Go ahead. And this was when they took the class their first semester. So then they took it again. And of course, they had already been, familiar with a few things, but I came in and we did different things. All right. So after I did a lot of what I did, I'm going to share with the strategies here. What I saw, that I got the results, later on, is on the CASP. So take a look here. The colors start to change, right? We're no longer seeing so much red. And yep. So there they are, right? So this is now the official SBAC. Go ahead and next slide. Yeah, we still have some kids who struggle. But overall, I saw a huge jump. Why? And we go back to what we've been told. If the kids, if they know you care, they will do what you ask them to do, right? Even the toughest of kids, even the ones who seem that they don't care, that they don't want to be there, you make that environment safe for them, they will produce. And this is what happened. Notice even some 4s there. Because at that time I was teaching AP Lit. This kid who was a junior who had failed, a number of them joined me the next year to take AP Literature. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yeah, I was just going to say those relationships that you create, right? I always think about my soccer players that they wouldn't do it for Mr. Recinos. He was like, I'm going to do it for coach and I'm going to run through a wall for coach, right? Because you make them feel safe and you make them feel like they're valuing your class. It's amazing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And there you see again some more, right? And again, I wish we could get all of them, and slowly with more time, again, only less than a semester I had with these kids. So they had it in them. For some of them, it wasn't really they couldn't do it. For some of them, they didn't want to do it, right? Why am I going to take this test for you? There's nothing in it for me, right?
Right.
And so I had to remind them why education was important. And remember, for many of us who come from working class families, where working and getting a job is important, right? It is number 1. And sometimes we got to come in as teachers and say, yes, you want to get that job. Yes, you want to help your family. But you know what? You can also help them even more if you get an education. And that's the message I send to my students all of the time. Go ahead. Yeah, a lot of green there, right? Very proud of these kids. I'm sure I threw them a pizza party. This is like later. And of course, very proud and always celebrating everything, that they do. In fact, when I talk to teachers, I tell them, you got to know your audience. And I'm a big kid, and so one of the things that I think I mentioned at the last workshop is I get a class DJ. We get down a list of songs, and I start creating that environment from day one. What kind of music you into, right? And I watch all the sports because I have, my own kids. I have, boys here, and I have my little girl, and so I'm all over. I call it, I need to know my market. So you come in, I'll talk to you about the Dodger game. I'll talk about the Raider game. I'll talk about the soccer game. Yeah, I love it, right? I'll talk about, like I said, Kendrick Lamar and Billie Eilish. I am a spy in the world of teenagers, right? I am going to what are we into? What, right? Because I need to know what's going to hook them in, right? And so I think that's what we need to do. That's another part, building that relationship, right? Go ahead. So just a little bit more there. Okay. So go ahead. And so, question that we should ask ourselves is, are students of today reading? Are they reading more or are they reading less? Right? A lot of parents, a lot of adults, I hear them complain about, this generation, right? All they do is watch TikTok. All they do, they just play video games, right? Or, are they writing more today? No, they don't write. They just text message, right? Well, actually, that is literacy, right? They can figure out these memes that are abstract and get them, and they're laughing, right? And I'm looking like, what in the world are you? It's a cat, right? At dinner, I don't know, right? They have this literacy skill. However, school hasn't quite caught on to what literacy is of today, right? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so, we have the traditional definition of literacy, right? The ability to read and write. Yeah, okay, yeah. But read and write what? It also means basic skills and knowledge on all types of literacy. Go ahead and go to the next one. So what is all types of literacy? Let's take a look here, right? So yes, we have informational literacy, scientific, financial, cultural literacy. Isn't that really important nowadays? Understanding people who are not like us sometimes, right? Media literacy, digital, critical literacy. So, and I might sound kind of harsh here, but I'm going to say it because I have to say it. If we're coming back into the classroom after, distance learning and still using the same worksheets, still using the same books and not changing it up a little bit, not seeing our kids are coming in after a real revolution, right? I mean, they've seen so much. We need to change with the times, right? We can't expect them to do the same thing they were doing before, right? We need to, again, adapt so that we're relevant to their lives, right? And we can hook them in, and that's what's going to make a difference. Go ahead. So, some research here. What is it that teenagers are reading? And I'm just going to read a little bit here because I think it's just so important, right? Teenagers' lives are filled with writing. They write for school, but look at that statistic. 93% of teens say they are writing for their own pleasure. I'll never forget walking across the campus, and there's this kid, this young man, and he's sitting on the bench, and he has a little journal out. I'm like, hey, what are you writing? He's like, oh, I like to write songs. Yeah, he won't write the journal that I gave about what'd you do last weekend, right? He doesn't want to write about that. So I'm like, I need to tap into that, right? Most notably, a vast majority of teens have eagerly embraced writing communication with peers and messagings, right? So we as adults don't value that, but it is forms of communication. Go ahead. All right, so what? Take a look at all the things kids are writing. They're constantly writing. We might not like what they write, but they are writing. Instagram posts. Kids are blogging. They're creating their own videos. That takes planning, as both of you are aware.
Yeah.
It takes a lot.
Absolutely.
Thinking, critical skills, right? Pacing. I mean, everything you want to do in good writing. They have their own YouTube channels. Again, they're messaging. They're even writing editorials or Yelp reviews. I mean, you name it. They are writing. Go ahead. And so, as we see the title here, they are motivated to write when it's relevant to them. Now, I know we have to, adhere to some of the curriculum, right? To the adopted textbooks, to our pacing calendars. Yeah, well, I'm still going to do all of that when I've hooked them in first. I'm not going to start with that, right? If I go to the gym and the instructor starts with the heaviest weights, they're not going to see me back, right? I need to go nice and slow. I need to build up. I need to feel good with my little 5-pound weights, right? I'm going to then move up. All right. So again, we're sometimes we get kind of stuck with what we grew up with. I grew up with just writing essays. The research paper, MLA, right? Cite your source, right? The paper, type it up. That's what I grew up with. But our kids don't need just that, right? They need to know how to write the email, how to send an appropriate text message, how to know argument on a YouTube debate, right? And those are the skills that we should be teaching, right? Go ahead. So as we see here, adolescents entering the adult world, 21st century, will read and write more than any other time in human history.
Wow.
They will need advanced levels of literacy to perform their jobs, run their households, act as citizens, conduct their personal lives. So yes, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, they were able to survive and buy a house and with very little education. That's not the case, as we know. That's not the case nowadays, right? And more so now. Those jobs are going to be high-skilled jobs that our students are going to be going into.
Yeah.
Go ahead. All right. So what is writing across the curriculum? All right. You're an art teacher. They're writing. They're writing descriptions. They're writing explanation. You're a science teacher. You know they're writing those labs. They need to be concise. They need to be precise, right? Go ahead. And math, right? A lot of parents complain about Common Core math. The students complain, right? It is so connected to literacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rich in vocabulary and in inferences, in dissecting what exactly is that question asking. The students now have to write out their explanations, and so it goes hand in hand. English and math teachers should be collaborating, right, and bringing in that research and data and numbers into ELA classes, and vice versa, right? Having those, it's a holistic approach to teaching, not departmentalized. But I think we still do that. Right? You're now in English class, you're now in history class, you're now in science class. Mm-hmm. But that's not how, right, we should be. So again, real world writing, college applications and resumes, and again, sending that professional email to follow up on a job. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And of course, discussion boards. Yes, right. Which I tell the students, most of my college classes later, right, as I work on a master's degree, there was so many discussion boards, and they were like short little research papers in just a little short discussion board. Go ahead. All right. So here's the paradox. And if you click on the image, you'll see there that even though our kids are reading and writing a lot more because they have this device in their hand that's rich with literature and right, their scores continue to be low, right? And then again, you'll see the dates a little bit dated there, but take a look at those standards. And if you go to the next slide, I have a little bit more research there. And this is from 2018. We continue to be fairly low in our reading skills, right? ELA skills, literacy skills. 49.8% are at met or exceeded in ELA. And if you look at the math, we're at 38. This was, again, 2018. Our kids have been out of school, right? What's going to happen? Now, we talk a lot about learning loss. And I don't use learning loss, right? Because our students learned a lot. Maybe not how to, fill in bubbles on a test, but they are coming in rich with information and knowledge. We just need to find ways to get them to share that out. Right. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. And feel free to jump in if you're seeing that out there.
I'm going to stay on this one.
Yeah. And so, go ahead.
No, I was thinking what you said a second ago, and I was thinking about my daughter. My daughter struggles so much in the traditional school, and when we went to distance learning, she actually flourished. It was interesting to see that now her teacher was allowing her to do flip grade and was allowing her to do videos and allowing her to do other stuff. And now, instead of still writing her little paragraph that she had to write, she will do the video first, and then you could see her thinking and explaining, and then from that video, she will take it and put it into words, something that she would have never done. And my question has always been, how do we recreate what worked for my daughter in distance learning when we go back to the regular classroom so that she can continue to excel what she was doing while she was at home? How do we bring that back?
I think the big danger right now is some students are calling this in-person distance learning. Like, yeah, I have a cart of laptops, so all my students have computers in the class, and they're almost like little robots. They'll come, go straight. I didn't even say go get your computer. They'll go straight to the computer, turn it on, sit down, and right. It reminds me like Wall-E or something, right? They're just like real program, and I have to stop. Like, no, stop. Let's just talk, right? And I do, and I force them. Really, I do. We have a warm-up discussion question every day, from pineapple on pizza, yes or no, right? To what's your favorite scary movie, and you're gonna talk, and it's very structured. Person A, you're going to talk for 1 minute. Person B, you're going to talk. I don't allow shoulder shrugs, right? I mean, I'm on it, right? And I my goodness, I have my little watch that counts my steps. At least 10,000 a day. At least, I don't stop. And I keep them, and I want them engaged, right? And I always joke with them because I have a picture of Tupac. And when a kid wants to put his head down, right? I say, hey, Tupac says, keep your head up. I know, if I can't take a nap, you can't take a nap. But again, why do I bring that up? Because, they can tell that I care for them. I say it, I show it. If I didn't care, I'd let them be on their cell phone. I let them zone out in the back of the room, right? I ignore that kid who doesn't want to do the work. But I can't do that. I won't. Like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years and I'm still smiling. Maybe I've gone crazy, but I don't say this to brag. I share it. I have zero to, honestly, truly, no referrals. I don't have discipline issues in my class. My kid, there might be that kid who drops an F-bomb here and there because, you know what, they've been used to that. They come into class and they're not even aware. And I say, hey, watch. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Christie. I'm sorry. Right? And I'm coaching them. I'm like, hey, in this environment, this is the way we're going to do it. In that environment, you do what you want. Right? And again, I'm not going to kick them out of my class. Right? In fact, I must keep them longer. I was telling them, you want to do the work? That's okay. I got lunchtime. I'm going to stay in here. I'll help you. Oh, no, I got it. So literacy is at the high, right? Why should we teach it cross curriculum? And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see here what's on these exams, right? And we'll go really quickly through these slides here. But if you look at that last line, take a look. 3rd grade, they're going to write an introduction that explains the beginning of a story. Boom. 3rd grade. Go to the next one. 6th grade, what are you writing? You're going to write research. You're going to write a multi-paragraph argumentative essay, right? About the penny, right? So you need to be able to write, some kind of argument. Go, next slide. Math, right? There it is at the bottom, right? You need to explain.
Scares me.
It is. Much love to our math teachers, right? Right? It's a struggle. Why do I need math? Why do I? Yeah, well, you'll see, right? But take a look. They have to be able to explain, right? Explain themselves. So if our students are not speaking out, and like you said about your daughter, I have my students talk it out first before they write it down. They got to interact with their thinking with someone else, right? To really challenge themselves. But I'm just giving that worksheet and they're doing it on their own, that's passive learning. That's not, right? And so, again, talking it out is really powerful. Go ahead. Here's another 7th grade. Give an explanation to convince that she is incorrect. Right? We always have the students say, what's the correct answer? No, tell me why you're wrong. All right. Here's another one. 8th grade. Look at this. Your school's writing, or you're writing an online magazine. So it's not always that traditional paragraph. It's not always that traditional essay. You're writing, right? Editorial. You're writing. Go ahead. Here's another one. You're doing research and you're preparing information for a school board meeting. Sounds like something we might do. Right? I need to take this class, right? How to write in all different mediums and formats. Go ahead. All right. So now we get to, okay, so now what do we do, right? We got the test. We got kids who are apathetic or don't have the skills. So now we know all the reasons, why, but I still got to teach. And I can tell them, okay, I know your story, but I still got to get you to that higher level. But at least I know who you are and what you need. And so now I'm going to give you some strategies. All right. So here's strategies. All right. So one of the things I do a lot is something called design-based learning, right? So design-based learning basically is project-based. It is hands-on projects. And so on day one, I'm talking about day one, no syllabus on that first day. No. They're going to, and we did this at the other workshop that we talked about. You're going to find an object that represents who you are. That's it. Find an object. And then you're going to talk, tell a partner, share it with the class. Why is that symbolic? Why do those glasses represent? Oh, because I like to see the world, right? And they're going to go, boom. Then I bring in the literacy. Now you can write the poem, or you could do an interview. Take a look at all the different things. Keep going. Now we could talk about vocabulary. If I'm in math, all right, that object, has some geometric figures. Or maybe I'm going to use it in a word problem, because there's something about students having choice, right? And that the object that I chose to symbolize me is going to be different from my partner. And I'm going to honor that as a teacher, right? No, we're not all going to write about that trip to Disneyland, because guess what? Not all students have gone to Disneyland, right? I always have an issue with Disneyland. It's too expensive.
Right? I was thinking from the teacher's point of view too. I remember Araceli teaching AP Spanish literature, and it was always the same essay question. And I will get tired of reading 40 of the same answers. And I started giving choice, and I will give 5 different questions, so 6 different questions. And now it became, for the students, really, really interesting to choose the one they wanted to do. And then for me to read them, because it didn't become boring reading the same thing over and over, but being able to read different things and different topics and be able to change it a little bit. And it was actually a big change in my class. Yeah.
Right. And again, you'll see that and I think that's something I learned through my writing journey, is that I didn't become a strong writer till I had something strong to say. And truly, I didn't become a strong writer till I got into college and I was confronted with issues of racism and sexism. And pretty soon I couldn't stay quiet. And pretty soon, as you know, I became very vocal, and I wrote for the journals and I wrote for the newspaper. I wrote editorials, because now I wanted to be heard.
You had something to say, yeah.
I had something to say. Go ahead. And so here's again some samples of projects my students did. So for example, you see here the student, they said that they were like a safety pin. And so then they write this poem about being like a safety pin. And now if I'm a literature teacher, I can connect it to some poem that I'm reading. So now here comes that assigned curriculum. Now here comes the textbooks I'm going to bring out. But first I'm going to start with something the student knows well. Then I'm going to move into, okay, this foreign territory, right? But now it feels safer. That effect, oh, yeah, I know how to write poetry. Oh, here's a poem. Oh, I'm familiar with this. And so it becomes that safe environment for that student. Go ahead. So here's another DBL kind of project. This one is a self-portrait. And if you notice the materials, simple things. Construction paper, right? And I keep telling the teachers, get these kids off the laptops. Get them off the cell phone, get them off the laptop, have them work with even the high school kids. All kids need to just interact in different ways, right? So this is just, again, recycled material, just things from around the house that they could put together to do a little self-portrait, and then they can write about it, right? Go ahead. I teach vocabulary by an object that they made. So this is the creature that they made, and I'm going to give them all kinds of word banks, sentence frames, right? So now the kid is not just saying, my creature is, nice. Now they're going to flourish with that vocabulary because I'm giving them the tools rather than that traditional word, list and memorizing. Now they want to connect it. Go ahead. And another thing that I have them do, so again, there's more examples of different ways. If you do something like design-based learning, you can write college essays based on your creature who wants to go off to UCLA and has to write personal insight questions, which we're in the middle of October right now, and our seniors are writing these, right? And they struggle writing about themselves. But kind of like in the world of puppetry, right? You have a puppet here, you have this thing, it's safer to write about it, right? You could connect it to literature. If you're a science teacher, if they got to make their little creature, right? They can talk about how it survives in the ecosystem. If you're, again, teaching procedures, you could do step-by-step. If you're teaching math, you could talk about ratios. You could do bar graphs. How many students use paper, cups, and how many people use this? You can measure. You can have them do dialogues. Go ahead. They can do resume, all kinds of things. No, that's okay. Go ahead. And so, with DBL, and I'll talk about other strategies, but one of the main goals is the students create a city using recycled goods. And there they are, my students who presented a little future city. And one of the things I have them do is tell a story. So narrative writing is big. And so the students had to tell a story, but my scenario was your people in your city have gone missing, right? There's something going on, right? So now you're going to write a suspense story. And I used to use a program called Storybird. I now just use Google Slides, and they can create their own book. And so I used to tell them just 5 pages, an intro, write something short. There were kids who were writing 10 pages, 15 pages. Why? Why would they write about the city, this makeup thing that's all just made out of recycled goods, rather than writing about, a story that just read? Why did this one get so much push?
Because it's their own, right? It's their own creativity. It's their own product that they're passionate about, right? They chose why this was gonna go here in this city and why that was gonna go there. So now it belongs to them, I think.
Right. And really talk about a flipped classroom in a different sense, that they are the expert. I become the student. I'm the curious one. Now I'm the one asking the questions, right? So so explain this to me. And they now take that power role. And they have this voice like, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen, right? And they feel confident, and that self-esteem goes up, affective filter goes down. Now I have something to write about. Now, of course, again, I teach AP, literature. I've taught all different levels of English. I'm not going to just throw away my curriculum. They're still going to compare it to 1984. They're still going to compare their city to Of Mice and Men. They're still going to, right? So I'm just gonna find ways to keep them engaged throughout. Go ahead. So again, just different ideas of things that teachers can do, right? Kids can create all kinds of different products.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. And again, they can do comparative writing. Like I said, they can compare it to if their city had a history, right? We just talked about, for example, land recognition. And honoring Native Americans who lived on this land here. And so when the students create their own city, they have to decide where geographically is their city and who were the original inhabitants there. So I'm bringing in that history. I'm bringing in geography. What? In my English class?
Layers,
yeah. Right? So again, the power of literacy goes beyond my walls, right? Go ahead. All right, and so this is, again, just another sample of a suspense story that the students did, and I'm going to bring in all that academic language, right? Figurative language, I tell them, okay, you're going to create a suspense story, but you're going to still use academic language and skills. Go ahead. All right, again, travel brochures, because then the kids get so excited to do this, to write about something that they know, because not all kids have traveled. When teachers give assignments, like write about a time you went with your family somewhere. Yeah. Right? We got to think about these questions. I'm always very aware of our students. We have a large population of kids in foster homes, group homes, right? And so I'm going to give a variety of things. And we're just going to have a variety, a buffet, I call it. Go ahead. And so this We just did this today. I wanted to include it today. So my students are doing a project. They're getting ready to write blogs on controversial issues. They had to choose a social justice topic based on the play The Crucible. And so, they've been so silent. It's been so hard to get discussion going. So one cool tool, I know you've used it, is Jamboard. So I created this Jamboard, and I don't know if you can see it there, but in the middle, there's a line, right? And they did this physically too. So I have done the 4 corners. They moved to each corner, have a discussion, right? But this one, we did it online. And so they had to answer this question. Should we treat children as adults when it comes to crime? And they're kind of all over the place. So they got to move their little sticky note, right? Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then we had a Socratic seminar. So I don't know if the audio will play very loudly here.
We can try it. Let's see.
Yep.
Fighting, or like, what if you didn't have parents? You had like an uncle, like
Okay.
telling you, or like these things like drugs, guns, like, and treating you bad, like that anger in you builds up, messes you up mentally. And as a kid, because you're a kid, and like when you like grow up.
All right. It's okay. We can pause it there.
Build up the anger.
So, and this is my class today, right? So I'm so proud. We're doing it like real time, right? And so before, I knew that if I just threw that question at them, they weren't going to be well prepared. And we've been preparing all week. I mean, they got the research, they saw the news articles, they read The Crucible, they actually acted it out, right? They had multiple, chances to work with this. And now here we are. And these kids went to town with this topic. And, it was a discussion, not a debate. It wasn't, like I said, a mic drop. Safe environment so that they can really share their thinking and their thoughts. And this young man talking about, broken homes and kids who are coming from these environments and what they really need, right? Go ahead.
Fighting.
Oh.
What if you didn't have parents?
Sorry.
It's okay. All right. And so Socratic seminars is powerful in any subject, right? Get them to debate. It's almost natural instinct for kids to argue. So give them that space to argue. Give them the strategies, right? So a couple years ago, this is a note I got from one of my former students who went off to Cal Poly Pomona, and she talks about Socratic seminars. And it was great. One of the things she said is that she and another student became, what did she call it? Executive Director of Student Discussions. They were appointed by the professor. I think the professor just came up with this title.
Kind of like the DJ, right?
Yeah, like first young. You're gonna be and as the student says, they were freshmen in this course with students who were in that class who were sophomores and juniors, but they were so confident in their voice that they felt they could take it out to the university and continue to share out. So I loved it, right? Go ahead. And so, here again is what I gave my students this past, just a couple weeks ago. So we got to the final project of The Crucible, and I said, these are all your options. There are some kids who don't want to work with others right now. They don't feel comfortable working in a big group, right? Maybe they need to work with just a partner. Maybe they just need to work on their own. I had kids who, and if you look at some of the options here, you can create a Powtoons. You can create a physical children's book. You can do a scene on Minecraft and tell me how, right, and explain it. And I had some of those kids do that. You can create a puppet show, right? You can create a movie. And I mean, these kids, the amount of laughter that I heard from as they were working with their peers, getting them out of their seats, working on their speaking skills, working on communication skills, working on time management skills. All these, again, this is back to literacy. They had to know the play. They had to communicate their ideas. This is still all literacy. Go ahead.
And the choice that you're giving, right? I'm looking at Adobe Sparks. I'm looking at Google Slides. I'm looking at Minecraft. I mean, music. I just...
There'll be something for everybody.
You're tapping into the kids, what they're into too at the same time.
Right.
Pretty amazing.
Right. And so, instead of just always writing the journal on a sheet of paper or on Google Docs, let's blog, right? And not only are you going to post your initial blog, your post, students are going to comment on it. And your comment needs to be, lengthy, not just I agree or disagree. Go ahead. All right. And so when they do blog, I put them all on Padlet This was when we were doing distance learning. I still do it today, but now, now we have the walls, physical walls, but we can now, they can share, and they're so proud of their web pages because they're so beautiful. They look so professional, especially using Adobe Spark. Beautiful, illustrations and so forth. Go ahead. And so,
go back,
once, yep. And so the next, another tip is that you don't just give them the assignment and let them flounder, right? You guide them and coach them along the way. If you want them to write that lab report, don't assume they know how to do it. I'm going to coach them. And one of the tools I like to use is Peer Deck. And so here, my students, I gave them a color coding, strategy, and they had to mark it up. And it's so easy because it's in real time. And I'll tell them, so-and-so, can I share I'm going to put it on the screen. Oh, look, everyone. Look at this awesome, beautiful, markings here. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And yeah. Oh, yeah. This saved me last year. This saved me, right? And it was great because I could say, and I would tell them and I would say it. I'm going to coach you right here. All right. I'm going to coach you right now. Ready? And I would, sometimes I would use their name. Sometimes I'd just say, okay, don't forget, you need to capitalize this. Oh, hold on. You didn't really state your thesis. It was great. Right. And teachers should still be using this. So this is a great, powerful tool. You can see who's working. You can see who's struggling, right? And I had a co-pilot. So I had a teacher assistant who could also kind of more eyes. And so again, teacher, right? Distance learning meets real teaching. I'm not just an IT person. I'm in there. I'm coaching them and I'm giving them that support throughout. Go ahead. And so, I talked a lot about DBL. If there's anyone who wants to learn more about it, I just learned so much. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. I don't think I'll ever go back to teaching in the traditional fashion. My classes are interactive. They're constantly talking and doing things, all kinds of different things to get to that literacy skills that I need them to have. So again, I hope you got something out of this. I gave a few tips. There's so many more. I could go on forever, but we'll keep it to the minimum here. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Araceli. Oh my goodness. My mind is, filled with so much wonderful things. And not only was it inspiring, but also so validating as teachers and educators as we're trying our best to help these kids who are coming back from distance learning. So thank you so much. I'm so excited to share this information for everyone to try all these strategies in their classroom. So Ricardo, I know I'm talking too much. Go.
No, I wanted to mention too that we did have Araceli before when she introduced DBL to us. So we do have the recording. If you want to go back and look in this YouTube channel, you'll be able to find it. Also, I know she mentioned Jamboard and she mentioned different type of technology that we also have done PDs on it. So definitely look in the same playlist where all of these PD sessions are hosted.
And Araceli, please do not go far because we know we're going to have you come again because you are so inspiring and again and again and again. And I don't think we will ever learn everything. There's always so much more that you can teach us. So please come back again. And thank you so much. And for everyone else tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you again next week, same day, same time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.